All right, it's your boy Troy Ellis here at T-Pro, man. I want to talk about something real quick. And just a few things that will definitely help in enhancing your music and making it sound closer to the commercial songs, radio, whatever you would like to call it. So, one major tip is actually taking your time. If there is something you hear within the song that you don't like, change it or fix it. That's what makes the difference. That's what makes yours sound different from others. There are professionals that are actually doing this that get paid a large sum of money to actually take their time and make sure it's the best it can be. And if you don't do that, you can't expect it to be comparable to theirs. So, one thing you can definitely do is, when you got a track, music, instrumental, and you lay vocals on that track, just about every DAW at this point have some sort of time stretching. Pro Tools, I know, has the warp mode. Ableton Live does a great job with time stretching audio, and it still sound, the same. And now any audio, you can stretch it or move it or something like that. And once you go beyond a certain point, you will actually change the way that it actually sounds, and you can tell. So, taking those words that are not on beat or in time and moving them will make a world of difference, because the tracks, the beats, all use or synchronized by a beat, time, and measure. The vocal should be also. And if you'll actually do that, then it'll sound like everything that you do is in time. That will definitely make your music sound closer to a commercial. All right? So, one other tip, and I'm going to get out of here because I don't want this video to be too long, and I'm actually on the road on the way to pick up my wife and kids from Georgetown, Kentucky. So, within the mix, something that I do, I start out with my vocal when I'm mixing. There's a lot that I do in detail as far as EQing, frequency sweep. There's a lot that I do, but still, even in that, to get true separation and it sound close to commercial radio or commercial songs or CDs, albums, whatever, one thing that I definitely do is the vocal is the first thing that I turn up.
Prepare to exit the highway in 2 miles.
Sorry, it's GPS. One thing that I do is I definitely start with the vocal. I turn the vocal up as loud as it can be. I make sure that the volume of that particular vocal is close to 0 decibels as possible, or sometimes even less than that. Maybe say -2 or something like that, -3, just for the headroom. So at that point, that is when I actually take and I'll solo just the vocal, and then now the vocal, the kick, the snare, I do a subgroup, and that's all in the center. I do most of my stuff in subgroups, and do the panning through routing through subgroups. All right. So with that being said,
half a mile, exit the highway at exit 385.
really, with that being said, so that so the vocal that's in the center, now I know I have the kick and the snare and all in that subgroup, all in the same subgroup. So like I said, the vocal is loud enough. I make sure it's loud enough. Then I'll take and it's on solo. Then I'll and all the other tracks I mute. And so then I take the mute
3.4 miles.
Mute button off of my snare drum, and I'll turn the snare up to the point to where I can definitely still hear the vocal and hear clarity in the vocal and not drown out the vocal. So after I do that, then I go to the kick and I turn the kick up and make sure the kick's loud enough but not too loud, because the kick will definitely drive the volume up. So you have to make sure you're careful with the kick, because if it's too loud, then you'll have to do like in mastering, there has to be a frequency. You have to find the frequency and bring the kick down within the mastering process. All right, so I'll turn the kick up and make sure I still got clarity in my vocal, and the vocal's still cutting through, and I can hear every word that's being said. Then after that, I turn my bass.
To exit the highway in 2 miles.
I turn my bass up, and then now you definitely have to be careful with turning the bass up too loud, because that'll definitely give you more volume. Not just that, you'll lose the clarity of your vocal in the bass when you start to get in the mastering process and you start using compressors and limiters and things like that, and that bass is too loud and it will overwhelm the whole track and lose clarity. All right, so at that point, I'll turn my bass up. I'll turn it up to where it's loud enough and the bass is actually driving the track, but it's not too loud, so that I can't hear the vocal clearly. So that's one of the things that I do within the center, in the panning, and to get clarity. The other thing that I do is I actually take. Now you have to understand, when panning, if you have things on top of each other, you're not going to get clarity if you have things on top of each other.
In half a mile, exit the highway at exit 3.
So what you have to do at that point is, so I'll leave those in the center, and then the closest thing I have to that is probably like a hi-hat. And a hi-hat, I'll put it like 30% left or right. And then like piano or things that are mainly like driving the track, the main, track, whether it's pads or whatever else.
Keep left.
Pads or whatever. At that point, I'll put those about 80%, 80 to about
172
81, 82%. All right. So that creates separation in between those tracks, and you still have clarity, and those tracks are on top of the other. And in the mastering process, you can hear the separation. You also put reverb. Reverb helps create separation and depth. Except for the bass, I don't put bass on my reverb. I mean reverb on my bass. Sorry, I don't put reverb on the bass. But at that point, then I'll do if I'm doing like, if I have like horns, or say like a guitar fill in or something like that, then I'll put that about somewhere around 65, maybe 70%. But a track that plays the whole time, I don't put it that, close to the vocal. All right, so and then I'll do like my background vocals. I'll definitely separate those from the lead vocal, and I'll put those about in between 86% to about 92%, anywhere in between those. And then at that point, there's great separation. And the rest, man, it's like I use it's either pads, mainly like pads or strings or whatever else I'm doing. It's normally like from 95% out to 100%. Depends on what it is. If I do like if I have strings and I want definitely want some separation, I'll do like the piano or something like that at around 80%, and then do like 100% on strings. And then, other stuff I might do like guitar stuff or whatever else that might come in and play just during the course. I'll do around 95%. So something like that, just to create some separation in between those tracks that'll actually be playing on top of each other. But that's basically it, man. I just didn't want to talk too long, but just want to give you an idea of how I go about mixing, and something that'll definitely help you in that process. And getting clarity within your mix. All right, peace out. It's been fun. It's your boy Troy Ellis here, Team Pro Man. Take it easy.